Hello and welcome to the TechBrain channel. In this video, I'll demonstrate the process of creating a database using the Amazon RDS, Relational Database Service. We'll use the console to manage and scale our relational databases in the cloud. So without any further ado, let me dive in. So I'm looking for RDS. So I'll go for this option here, Aurora and RDS, Manage Relational Database Service. So I'll click on that. I am already logged in. Okay, so what's next? I'll find the option that says Create Databases. So this option here. So it says Amazon Relational Database Service makes it easy to set up, operate, and scale a relational database in the cloud. So it says to me that my instance will be in that region. So that's the region, and within that region there'll be availability zones, as you know. Okay, so I'll select that option. So I'm given a choice here in terms of the database that I'd like to create. So there is all manner of things available here. Let's suppose that I have a SQL workload. I'm doing stuff with SQL Server. I will choose that option there. So there are two creation methods. There's a standard create. For the standard create, you set all of the configuration options, including ones for availability, security, backups, and maintenance. Easy to create or easy create. In this particular case, you're going to use recommended best practice configurations. We want this one, more flexibility. We can tweak it as required. So we're going for Amazon RDS, so this will be a fully managed database for us in the cloud. And what version of SQL do we want? So what I'm doing at the moment is maybe some prototyping, so I'm not going to go crazy and go for the Enterprise Edition. And obviously I do have a limitation here, which is the fact that I'm on the free tier. So I'll select that option, Express Edition, which is good enough what we're doing. And you've got a choice in terms of the database engine that you'd like to use. So let's go for free tier. Database instance settings. So we can specify things like the username, credentials, get it to auto-generate a password. So go through each of these one by one. So this is the database instance identifier. What's the name of my database instance? That's what we add there. I'll keep it simple and just instead get it to auto-generate a password. Yeah, so I'll do that. So it says you can view your credentials after you create your database. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Database instance class. What can we go for here? So let's look at the available options. So you can see that some of these other options are not available because obviously I'm on the free tier. That's the only one that's available to me. Storage type. Again, a number of different options available. So go for something that is suitable for your workload. If you need more information about the right type of database, AWS provides extensive documentation about workload compatibility with the various storage types. So additional storage configuration. You can enable storage auto scaling. So instead of running out of storage space, you can automatically scale. And these are some of the compelling reasons for using AWS, this auto scaling feature. Okay, so that's the storage stuff done. Connectivity. Are we going to connect to an EC2 compute resource? We probably don't need to be doing that. So just run with the defaults in this case. What about choosing a security group. We could actually create a security group. But instead, what we'll do is we'll choose an existing one. Are we going for an existing VPC security group? Yeah, we've gone for that default there. And then further down here, there will be additional options. So if you'd like to tag your server, it does make management of your servers much easier if you tag it. You can query by tag. Additional configuration options. Did I miss? Okay, standard port on which SQL Server listens. That's 1433. Availability zone. Is there any preference? No preference really. Assign it to any availability zone. Okay, so we'll check all the other settings. Authentication. Okay, so next is enable SQL Server Windows authentication. So if I select this option, I'll need to select the AD that defines my user data. Obviously not going to go for that. So we're not enabling SQL Server Windows authentication, no. Retention period. Okay, so this next bit is about performance. Here we choose the monitoring tools for this database. It's essential that you monitor your database to know the state of health. We just run with the defaults. We're not going to go for enhanced monitoring or anything like that. So at the end, it gives me the estimated monthly costs. So it says this free tier is available for 12 months. And a little bit of a summary as to what we are getting. Okay, looks like we're good to go. So I'll create the database. So it's suggesting some add-ons that I can use. So suggested add-ons, either Elastic, Cache, Cluster, use RDS. No thank you, not today. So we can see that the database is currently being provisioned. It does take a while though. So I'll leave it here until it's ready for me to interact with. So instead of closing all these, I'll just leave them. That's a good way to actually monitor progress. I'll grab a coffee while this is going on. So see you in the next section. The database has been successfully created. We can view the connection details. So I'll click on connection details. And this here is the database endpoint. So what I can do at this stage is use SQL Server Management Studio to actually connect to this database. Let's see if that lets us in. So just firing up my SQL Server Management Studio connection. So it's over here. And I'll move this over here. So what is the server name? So these are options I'm presented with. And authentication, I'll use SQL Server authentication rather than Windows authentication. We did not enable Windows authentication. So I'm going in as admin, and I believe the password is this value that I was able to get from AWS. So once you click view connection details, it gives you your username and also the password. Let me paste that in there, and let's try to connect. So while I'm attempting that connection, I can close that, and you notice that on this dashboard I can see the percentage CPU utilization. Refresh that. So there are some post installation steps that are still happening. So I'll click that, and click here. So connectivity and security. So on those ports, what do we have for our security? I believe I'm not able to get in. So it says network related or instance specific error occurred while trying to connect. And it tells me that SQL Server is configured to allow remote connections. Verify that the name instance is correct. Okay, so sounds like there's a bit of configuration that's yet to be done on this side. So let me troubleshoot this issue here. So what we'll be doing is ensuring that we've got the correct rule for inbound traffic. So I'll edit the inbound rules. That will help us to resolve the connectivity issue that we had trying to use SQL Server Management Studio. So we know already that we'll be listening on port 1433. So in here is a SQL Server or custom. We go for custom. Okay, Microsoft SQL Server, this one here. And it's got TCP 1433. And we're coming from my IP address. Ideally, we don't want to let the whole world. So that's my IP address there. So be coming in from that IP address. Any other options? None at this stage, just that inbound rule. So that inbound rule, I can go back here and attempt to connect. So I'll say, yeah, I'd like to connect. And we're using SQL Server Authentication server name. I'll need to grab that from here. So I'll go to database. So I'll say RDS instances. Click on that. There is a quicker way to do that, by the way. And I will select this database here and grab that. So that's the server. Plug that in and get the password as well. So that's my password there. So username is admin and password is that value there. So remember the password. Let's try to connect. There is an additional setting that allows you to enable public access. As you can see here, under additional configuration, there is this option that says publicly accessible. If you select that option, then RDS will assign a public address to the database. Without a public address, we cannot connect. So make sure that's selected. And you'll find this under databases, modify DB instance, database 1. That's quite an important setting. So if you're going to be using an external client to connect the database, you'll need to make sure that's enabled. I can then modify my database instance and try to connect. So I'll come out of here and say, yeah, let's give it a spin. So there is progress, as we can see from the error here. It says a connection was successfully established with the server, but then an error occurred during the login process. The certificate chain that was issued by an authority that is not trusted. Okay, so let's look at the message details. Copy the message somewhere else, and I believe there is an option here. I can say something like that and try reconnecting. That should let me in. Okay, so I'm now interacting with the database, as you can see. Where has it disappeared to? Okay, so if I go to databases, that's the admin database. Great. Can I create my own database here? So let's do some DBA related stuff. What you'd normally do, say, yeah, I would like to create a new database. So I normally work with document databases. I have worked extensively with SQL databases in the past. So we should be able to just run a few queries, create a database, run a few queries. No harm in doing that. Okay, new database. What's the new database? We should see some dialog coming up asking us to specify the new database that we'll be using. So there were two things we had to do. Make sure that, in fact, three things we had to do. You need a rule for port 1433. You also need to make sure that you've opened this up. So those were the two fixes, and when authenticating I had to turn that encryption option off. Obviously you do want traffic to be encrypted between your database and your database client and AWS. So in that case you need to make sure that you've configured suitable certificates. Is there a dialog popping up? Okay, there is a dialog. That's the dialog. I'll close one of those dialogues. And what's the name of the database? So I'll just call it DemoDB and add the database. So the database is being created, and I can see the path for the data file as well as the log file. So I'll come in here and say I want to add a new table. So a new table, what's in our table? Just a few columns. What we're trying to do anyway. And I think there should be some dialogue appearing somewhere. No, there isn't. Just need to wait for it to... Okay, it's not responding. Anyway, to summarize, we're able to create a relational database. So we're able to use the RDS features of AWS. And we spun up Microsoft SQL Server, Express, and we've been able to connect to it using SQL Server Management Studio. So I was able to connect to it using SQL Server Management Studio, and we created a table which we should be seeing. And you can go on to do other things. Just carry on with your normal workload. So that's my, in this case, my development database. I can do some development related work. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like more great content, please like and subscribe. So that was the video on setting up SQL Server and connecting to it using SQL Server Management Studio. So we played around with RDS. Okay.